good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. Despite technical difficulties, I am live on Facebook and not on the WBLZ app. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen today. But look, a podcast is certainly not out of the question, and I certainly like to do those. I'm your host. Good afternoon, everybody. Rudy Reyes here. If you're tuning in, make sure that you check out this podcast to be posted on the RudeDogShow.com probably within the next hour or so when I'm done with this podcast. Let's look at the Tennessee Titans for a minute. I know they just acquired Eric Decker in a one-year deal. How can he renew his career? He ended up being a part of the Jets. He had an injured 2016 season. His ratio for catches to touchdowns were a little topsy-turvy, but when we just look at the discussion, at least in this past week in the NFL, along with Decker, we're going to touch on some other things as well, Steelers, Rams, and Saints in addition. When we look at Eric Decker, the one-year deal, what does that mean for the Titans? How does that enable not only Eric Decker to become a part of this wide array of acrobatic talent for the Tennessee Titans, but what's more important is that his veteran leadership, and I think that's commonly overlooked, not really spoken a whole lot of, because his injuries in New York, not allowing himself to really find a flow with the Jets, certainly looked good when he was on the field, when he was not injured, and I look at his potential and his way of allowing his leadership to really take center stage and to help these young guys really understand what it takes, at least to become probably one of the better wide receiving corps in the AFC, not to mention the AFC South. I'll be honest with you, Titans have more than enough wide receiving power around them. There's plenty to go around. He becomes the latest weapon in the Titans core with nothing but excitement for guys like Marcus Mariota. Gets a chance to throw to them along with a guy like Eric Decker. I'm more than confident he is happy with that situation there. And what's more interesting is that in the 2017 draft, they acquired Corey Davis, hot on the ticket list, as well as Taywan Taylor, Jonnu Smith, and all within the first 3 rounds of the 2017 NFL draft. I guarantee Eric Decker will have a lot to say and will have a lot of influence on the wide receiving core in relation to how this group gels. It's going to take some time, and training camp will certainly be the proving ground, literally and figuratively, for the Tennessee Titans. And we're going to find out exactly what they're going to be capable of once training camp comes into play. And, of course, as it becomes a full swing, what they will do in the preseason obviously remains to be seen. So we look at guys like Rashard Matthews, Delaney Walker, who are already there, who are certainly making a name for themselves with 16 total scores and over an 800-yard threshold, which for the Tennessee Titans is a lot, but certainly not enough to get it done, especially when you look at Marcus Mariota getting injured. Same injury as Derek Carr acquired. It's odd enough that both of those particular quarterbacks had the same injury in the same season, not in the same day, but in the same season. So hopefully Marcus Mariota comes back from that. Ohana to you, Mr. Mariota. Look, Mariota seems very happy with the pick, but when you look at Eric Decker and his efforts in the past years, not only when he was with the Denver Broncos, but he was with the New York Jets. I mean, he has a chance to turn anew, to flip the coin rather, to make himself revive in this Tennessee Titans system. And I certainly know that they can do that. You could have a strange conversation in regards to if this is Steelers South or not, with a lot of former Steelers influences and influencers as a part of the Steelers organization. We'll talk about the Steelers later on in this podcast. When we look at the injuries haunting him in 2016, I'll guarantee he wants that to be a distant memory, but he amassed 2,183 yards and 19 touchdowns, and the Titans are on pace to start where they had left off in 2008 with a blitzkrieg of talent. For those fans who are out there looking for a wide receiving core, granted Mariota stays consistent, decision-making processes are a part of what he does heading into his second season. I think that not turning the ball over, at least in quarterback play, is certainly something you have to look at for Marcus Mariota. Ill decision, ill timing for him. And in all fairness, I would not sleep on the Tennessee Titans this year, at least from an offensive standpoint, as they could light up the scoreboard early and often, especially in the AFC South. And of course, when you look at some of the better teams in the AFC South, the Tennessee Titans certainly remind me of that team. Welcome to the Rude Dog Show. Lou, how are you?
I'm here. I'm glad it's looking better for you.
Well, it's not. I'm actually on a podcast, so you're here recorded on a podcast that'll be posted on the RudeDogShow.com as soon as I'm done here today. I was talking about the Tennessee Titans, and I look at everybody wants to call the Steelers South, and I completely agree with you. I mean, they have a Hall of Fame, defense, and what they want to call him. It's not even a coordinator, Dick LeBeau. He's more of an influencer there in the Tennessee Titans, at least defensively. And you can honestly see a lot of his style play, and the kind of things he called while he was with the Steelers. Do you believe the Titans will be as good defensively as they will be offensively this year?
Well, probably, because actually you just got one of my boys. You got one of our old Jets players. You got Eric Decker, so that may even add to it.
It does add to it. Eric Decker adds a lot. It has a lot of potential in the short game. It's a slot receiver for Eric Decker. I see him getting at least, maybe 4 or 5 grabs per game. And of course, his yak or yards after catch is a lot. And the guy has been known to light up the screen. And because he's smaller, he's not necessarily the tallest guy on the field, but he's shifty and he has the skill set. And the Jets didn't deserve him anyway, in all fairness. If they really wanted to make him a certain part of this offense, which currently right now the Jets are imploding big time. But if they really wanted to keep a piece of the puzzle, Eric Decker would have certainly been the guy that they would have looked to. Unfortunately, did not. But fortunately enough for him, I think it's a better situation for Eric Decker from a personnel standpoint. From a quarterback standpoint, how many quarterbacks did the Jets go through last year? 3 or 4? Geno Smith? Okay, so 3. Either way, you got to be able to name your guy in the beginning of the season and say, look, this is my franchise quarterback. I think a lot of it has to do with the drafting efforts or lack thereof for the New York Jets in the quarterback position. And I've called it before that a head coach for the Jets certainly needs to get himself together and pick up the pieces of what's left of his career. In all fairness, I don't think he stays very long with the New York Jets. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the Jets are in the destiny of a quarterback, and they have last year was pathetic. So they need to get somebody who is not necessarily the fastest, but maybe like in terms of like the smartest quarterback. I mean, because speed, can only do so much. They gotta get the know-how into the quarterback.
I think it's more than a know-how because, look, head coaches in the NFL have the connection with their quarterback. We're going to talk about the Rams in that situation there with Sean McVay and Jared Goff. But you have to have a duo, a tandem. You have to have synergy. And unless you have synergy, then you really have problems. You have problems down the line. You have problems in formation or what the offense is trying to accomplish. You really have an identity. There is no identity there for the Jets, and currently there still is no identity for the New York Jets. They really had to make some serious decisions. Unfortunately, they keep making the wrong ones. I know they're trying to get under the cap. I know they're trying to be financially or fiscally responsible for what they have as a part of their overall monies available, but I just don't think the Jets are heading the right direction this year. But when you talk about the Tennessee Titans, they do look like the team this year to beat, at least in the AFC South. Could they be contenders in the AFC overall? Maybe. I'd like to think so. Tennessee Titans, because they added Eric Decker, gives them another dimension, gives them the ability to be more dangerous, especially in third down situations where they could just, throw them in a little slant, and then there's your first down in the short, and that's it. And that's really what the Tennessee Titans need to do better on and rely on, or even fourth down for that matter. But third down is where you can get that ball moving. Fourth down, you may as well just punt it unless you're, goal line, you want to punch it in, you want to put a little trickery in the offensive calling, then you're going to put Eric Decker in the slot or on the outside in order to get that touchdown. And I think the Tennessee Titans need to do much better. Now, don't forget, On the other side of the ball, defense played extremely well and at times looked unstoppable with lots of splashy type interceptions, multiple sacks last year. The Titans, this Titans team is looking more and more like a team ready to make a mark, not only in the AFC South, but in the AFC overall. I like the Titans in the AFC South. I have a feeling that the Titans are going to surprise a lot of people and they end up winning the AFC South. Because look, the Titans ranked 4th in the AFC, 14th overall in points scored, and 11th in total yards. I think they can add to that, and they can do more damage with Eric Decker. And like I said, if you put him in the slot, you're a lot better off being able to have scoring opportunities deep in the red zone with him there than without him. And I'll say this. The addition of Eric Decker can prove its weight in gold for the Titans if he can stay healthy. I think that's a big if right now. I know the AFC South is tough, but the AFC East is a lot tougher, especially when you have a team like the Patriots, who you have to climb through hoops to really get to Tom Brady, of course. So anyway, go to SeatGiant.com. Make sure you use Rude Dog. Get something off at the end of your transaction. SeatGiant.com. Hashtag get your experience. SeatGiant.com, because everybody wants a better experience because everybody can have a piece of paper. Now, when it's something near and dear, not to my heart, of course, you see my shirt, it is a Steelers polo shirt, but the Rams in Los Angeles, when you think of number one picks for any team recently located in a whole nother environment, not just the city, you have to change everything, attitudes, personalities, players, front office, back office, coaches, coordinators, everything. Look, this team looked handcuffed last year with Jeff Fisher as their head coach. I was not going to use his name, but everybody knows the true story, so I'm not going to try to fool anybody or try to pull smoke over somebody's eyes. But look, when it comes to the Rams, the first quarterback you think of in a situation such as this, who did not have a great year last year, is Jared Goff for the L.A. Rams, Los Angeles Rams. Look, his change of view on the sidelines not only deviates from having Jeff Fisher there, but welcomes Sean McVay, a first-year head coach, who found himself a newly revamped offensive line as well, especially what he did in the draft, grabbing some pieces that they needed there. Despite the horrible protection, which I actually would come short of saying horrific protection, but Goff forced into a starting role. And some say he wasn't ready for it. I watched a couple of Rams games. I'll be honest with you. I look at him, he looked like a scared rabbit at times under center, and the decision-making process is due to unfamiliarity with the offensive line, and offensive plays that were being called, as well as him and Jeff Fisher not being on the same page. And, of course, Jeff Fisher waiting until infinity to start a guy like Jared Goff, who had the team. And the bottom line is this. They took him first overall. The Rams haven't done that in at least 20 years. So now here they come, grab a guy such as Jared Goff, and then handcuff him by not giving him the right head coach, by not giving him the right tools that he needed. Or did they? Did they have every single ounce of effort? Did they have the belief that Jared Goff would take them into the promised land as their first-year starter? I think there was too much pressure put on him to do that, especially here in Los Angeles, where pressure is plenty. For any LA team, the Chargers are going to feel that pressure as well to perform and not be the old Chargers in San Diego. So there's a lot to be desired there. But I think when you look at Jared Goff, it's really hard to see him do any worse than how he performed last year because of the offensive line, because of the offensive play. You can bark and say that Todd Gurley didn't get his due. He didn't get his yards after the run. Well, why is that? The offensive line has to be there to slice, to put gaps in place in order for Gurley to run through them. Look, if they can't protect the quarterback, there is no way they're going to open up gaps and seams for a running back to get through to create a first down or put them in positive yardage. It just doesn't work that way. A lot of that had to do with Jeff Fisher and the lack of preparedness. Because, look, bottom line is this. Jeff Fisher is a rah-rah guy. Sean McVay is not a rah-rah guy. Sean McVay is a solid character and the best pick for the LA Rams in the head coaching position. Something they needed to do for quite some time. Why they didn't pull the trigger a lot sooner. And, I understand they just had given Jeff Fisher a brand new contract. But at the end of what you look at for his tenure as the Rams head coach, I don't foresee him anywhere in the NFL as being a head coach. Maybe a coordinator, maybe somebody who's going to some type of assistant, something similar to that of a Dick LeBeau. Of course, Jeff Fisher, known as a former Tennessee Titans coach, and certainly one of the reasons why he didn't last there is because him and quarterbacks did not really mesh out too well. Maybe he's not designed to be a head coach. Maybe he's designed to be something else. And of course, how long can you hang your hat if you're Jeff Fisher when you don't have, you have a championship, great. But what you don't have is the ability to get on the same page with the guys that you really need to get on the same page with, who can be out there like Jared Goff, who would execute like Jared Goff, Todd Gurley, get the right offensive linemen in place. So, and look, the bottom line is this. Jeff Fisher was at least 2 or 3 years removed from the NFL before the Rams decided to lay the smackdown on him and the contract and say, you know what? I don't care what we owe you. We need a winning season, and it's not with you. That's the bottom line. I like Jeff Fisher. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm sure he's a great dad and all of those things. But a head coach, no. Look back at last year. Now, me and Eric Dickerson follow one another. Me and him were talking. He wouldn't elaborate, of course, on the fact that he was banned from the sidelines during Jeff Fisher's tenure at the end of last season. I don't see any issue this year with Sean McVay. Matter of fact, Goff was quoted as saying that based on the continuity, based on a myriad of factors, along with understanding the offensive playbook, I think that Jared Goff stated as I've understood all of it and grasped all of it so far, and that was per ESPN. Look, quarterback play can be attributed by not only being familiar with the offense, but his comfort level with his center and offensive line. As an offensive player is concerned, some have questioned Todd Gurley and his playmaking capability, but look, it wasn't really about him. It was him being given the opportunity, seams and gaps for him to run through, to create opportunities, because he's shifty, he is fast, and once in the open field, it's very, very hard to take him down. I'd like to see Todd Gurley get more play, and more efficient play, at least from the offensive line perspective, in order to gain better ground, convert those third downs, which the Rams were almost dead last in the NFL. And I look at the offensive line not doing very well. I mean, whether it was the ownership, whether it had to do with Jeff Fisher, whether it had to do, there's so many different things in relation to why both of these stars, Jared Goff and Todd Gurley, had not had the season that they were looking for. Rams are looking to turn it around. Sean McVay is a step in the right direction. Whether or not the offensive line and offensive components that are going to be needed to make sure that the Rams are the perennial team in the NFC, at least in the NFC West, become a powerhouse later on by production, by numbers, by wins. All of that makes the pain go away. Look, like I said, I see Goff performing much better this year with Sean McVay. I witnessed something brewing with the Rams, at least so far, between Goff and McVay, but all things considered, it has not been proven yet. There's no way to determine whether or not training camp will be the ultimate proving ground for the LA Rams to really get things together. As a reference, and switching gears but still staying in the NFC, last week I had Patrick Hatton on Cover 32. Lou, you were here for that conversation. We were discussing Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and what happened in Super Bowl 51. Being on the losing side of a Super Bowl team means that hangover types of mentalities could possibly exist there for the Atlanta Falcons. The upcoming season for the Falcons can be interpreted as not being able to afford or dwell on anything that happened in that game. So in other words, you'd be ill-advised to continue dwelling on something that you need to start over again. And that is starting a Super Bowl run from the onset all over again. Do I question Matt Ryan's capability of not being able to dwell on it? Well, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a quarterback. I can't understand a quarterback's mindset, but I do know this. Nobody likes losing. And the minute you get a loss after all that work, after an MVP-type season, Matt Ryan put up numbers that were unseen, at least for any Atlanta Falcons quarterback since Michael Vick. Now, with that being said, my suggestion is this, Matt, if you're listening, move away from what was or the way it should have happened. Honestly, there's much to do about nothing but start over from the beginning. And if I had any advice to Matt Ryan, any further advice, let it go, Matt. Let it go. let's move on. Let's talk about something that's dynamic. I was listening to an interview today, and it looks as though Martavis Bryant's future with the Steelers remains intact, at least for now, as well as in minicamp, where Bryant's worries could be a thing in the past about allowing his teammates to put their trust back in him. It doesn't seem to be a priority for him. Why? Because he wants to make actions speak louder than words. I think that's something that was a topsy-turvy from what we had seen from Martavis Bryant in the, obviously he hasn't played since 2015, so there you go. So he had a lot of time to do a lot of hard thinking. I think that when I listened to the interview, I had a lot of interpretation about the interview. One of those is that he's more focused on working hard, and if he does that, he'll hope to gain their trust by default. I see that happening, but only Martavis Bryant knows. And when I look at him physically, and I've watched a lot of film on him in the past, at least last year, I look at him at some film in minicamp, he has a lot more muscle. He's a bigger guy. He's thicker. He still has the speed, but he's more durable, meaning that he can take the hits, get back up, and keep moving. Of course, when you're younger, you can do that. When you're older, maybe not so much. But Martavis has more muscle, and he's playing with more now than I think he ever has before. When you look at his athleticism, I don't question it. When you look at his playmaking capabilities, without a doubt, he will get it done. But the question remains as to what off-field attitude he might have, and especially the attitude about being a father. I'm sure he's happy about that. I know when I had my youngest son, that my attitude, my personality, my ability to flip the script is, I need to do something more. I need to do something better. And I still question what his off-field attitude is, despite having a child, despite, having a young child. Again, children don't make you mature. It's a maturity that you show your children. And, considering that he has to change his demeanor, has to change his personality, has to change his personal life overall, I think has a lot to do with what production he has on the field. Look, the role model material is something he needs to exhibit for his son. The Steelers do have alternate plans in their future. If for some reason Martavis Bryant does not work out and he strays from completing his rehabilitation requirements, and by the way, happy belated Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Happy Father's Day, Luke, to you as well. You're included in that statement.
Oh, thanks. No, not really. Even though I'm not a father.
Well, close enough. If you've mentored somebody or had some type of influence on someone, then, you still play the father role. So
I am a 5-time uncle.
Well, there you go. So that's something there. And then last but not least, probably turned into about a 30-minute podcast, which is just as fine with me. I was looking at some film the other day about Adrian Peterson, Mark Ingram, and of course, when you get another guy from Tennessee, the Volunteers certainly have a lot of great talent there. That's one of the reasons why the New Orleans Saints grabbed him. I look at it like this. Adrian Peterson's signing was good for the Saints, is good for Adrian Peterson, because that allows the Saints to have a myriad of guys from Mark Ingram to choose from. But Mark Ingram, certainly the workhorse, not happy with last year's output on the sideline, bantering and very upset, clearly. And I know how to read lips, but I'm not going to repeat what he was saying. But he wasn't happy with the offensive production. A lot of that had to do with the offensive line and the fact that, very similar to the Rams, still better than the Rams. Why? Because they had given Drew Brees a lot more time to pick other teams apart, because Drew Brees is just that kind of quarterback, able to, obviously having to put up over 41 points any given game in order to stay competitive and stay afloat, despite the abysmal secondary play by the Saints. But when you look at guys such as Adrian Peterson, Mark Ingram, I look at Mark Ingram, nearly 1,000 yards eclipsed in the season last year. I look for him to get the majority of the touches. Adrian Peterson will probably get the short yardage situation. Of course, their draftee will also do the very same thing in Alvin Kamara. So I look for this triple-headed threat to follow consistency, at least for the Saints season. Of course, Mark Ingram, definitely somebody to look up to. I don't foresee anything negative happening, but if Adrian Peterson seems to be more productive than Mark Ingram, look for that role to switch. Look for Adrian Peterson to take the majority of the carries. Again, that is dependent on production. Your role, your position, regardless of what it is on the football field, has everything to do with production. If you're not producing the running back, they need somebody else. If you're not producing as a halfback, they get somebody else. If you're not producing as a wide receiver, any given position on an NFL team, you deserve to give it up to somebody else who can make the run. Last year reminds me of Tony Romo. He bowed out gracefully and said, this is his team. It's no longer my team. And, of course, Dak Prescott more than happy to take that position. So, again, Alvin Kamara could be one of those guys in a short yardage situation, third down. I look for him to be maybe explosive near the goal line. Put him in the slot. He's a tall target. He's huge. He's got great hands, solid athleticism. And, of course, Adrian Peterson and Mark Ingram, those guys, to maybe give them a dual-back threat. Perhaps Peterson could block for him or Ingram could block for him. I see a lot of things going on. Positive, but I think that the Saints clearly need to look for a secondary player. As I interviewed Roy LaFrance on the show, I look for him to be a solid impact. As long as he gets the opportunity to start, I think Roy LaFrance can certainly do that for the New Orleans Saints. I guess the biggest question is whether or not they can get it done and protect the pass by being able to apply the much-needed pressure up front by loading 7 in the box or giving them a nickel look or maybe giving them a fake blitz package in order to get opposing quarterbacks to think they can get over on him. Instead, you get a guy jumping up, a DB who's tall enough to either intercept or block the ball down, especially on third down yards to prevent those first downs. So defensively for the Saints, they need to get it done in the secondary. They need to push and run the table and own that line of scrimmage is something they failed to do in a lot of instances last year. So a lot of things to consider, a lot more stories in the NFL going on right now. But, Lou, thanks for the call, man. I do appreciate you hanging in here in about 30 minutes here on the show. I appreciate it.
All right.
And we will talk to you tomorrow. All right, thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was fantastic. I thank you for listening to this podcast. It'll be posted on the RudDogShow.com. Of course, it is linked to my SoundCloud. Make sure that you can that you have the time to tune in. I thank you for listening to the podcast. Of course, this was a short one, but when you look at technical issues, you just got to find a way around. Anyway, this is Rudy Reyes of the Rude Dog Show. Make sure you check out tomorrow's show. I am hoping as well it is live. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow.